Exhibitionistas. Emily here. I'm so glad that you could join us. We have a great show for you today. In the spirit of the holidays, we've invited along Joana's daughter, Constanza Saturnino. She's a young artist living in London. And this conversation really looks at the perspective of art from someone who grew up really steeped in art, with her entire family being artistically minded, and someone who's found her own way within it. It's a great insight. I found it a great insight into how a young artist is holding her art and is defining her art in her own way. And not to mention, she is just a wonderful person. So thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for listening in. And I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did.
Hello and welcome to this family edition episode where I, Joana, invited my daughter to talk about growing up, going to exhibitions, and eventually studying contemporary dance to take all this experience into an artistic practice. This is an opportunity for me as a mum to ask her questions that normally I wouldn't think to ask. And my lovely co-host, Emily, is here to poke this dynamic. So first of all, hello, Concha. Thank you for being here and welcome to this side of the podcast, the recorded side.
Hello. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so nice to see you, Conch. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. As I was saying earlier, I follow you on Instagram. So this is like a big treat to kind of delve into the art you've been making and, you know, kind of where it all came from, especially as, you know, Joana mentions that you grew up in this milieu of, you know, contemporary art your entire life. So thanks for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, I have to say that you do not have my name or your dad's name, and you decided to go with another name. So I'm going to introduce you as Constanza Saturnino, which is very weird to pronounce with an English accent.
It is.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Pronounce it as it's meant to be pronounced.
Go ahead.
Constanza Saturnino.
That's it.
That's a much more beautiful ring, I must say.
So, well, first of all, I'm going to ask you ladies our usual question, which is, how was your weekend culture? What have you been watching, reading, eating, maybe? Anything that you want to put out there?
The thing that we watched this week was much belated. It came out a year ago, is the movie Tar, which Joana, you and I have discussed before and have rival views on, because I loved it. I thought it was really great. So this is Cate Blanchett, and she plays this maestro that heads up the Berlin Orchestra. And it's like more than 2.5 hours long. And I love the ponderousness of it. I love sort of the length of time it takes to build this story. And essentially, to me, it was, you know, right in the opening scene, she talks about the conductor's role in time. And that it's the conductor's role is manipulating time. And, you know, she talks about how, you know, the music doesn't start until I make it start, you know, so just these absolutely kind of grandiose feelings she has about the role that she has as a maestro. But kind of that is the through line as well. I mean, she is a woman on the precipice of a major breakdown. And, you know, she's looking at midlife, and she's pondering her own death, but also like her own relevance, because she, in one scene, you see she's doing a guest lecture at Juilliard, and she's confronted with the next generation that have very different ideas than she has about how to behold music. And I feel like it's a death there. So she's kind of seeing the exit of her generation's ideals. She's a Gen Xer, so Joanna, you and I can maybe identify or at least
Totally.
understand, it's like
Totally.
where she's coming from. And so it's like a death in that sense too. And yeah, I thought it was a really unusual film, filmed really unusually. Um, and there's a review that Zadie Smith wrote about it in New York Books, and the review itself was nominated for a Pulitzer. And
I had no idea about this.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't.
yeah, and it's really worth a read. I mean, there's not many movies, I think, that don't really tell you exactly where it's going to go. I mean, this could have easily been a movie, and I think part of, your critique is the right one, Joanna, about the role of genius and kind of that over emphasized thing. And it has a lot of that, but it is ultimately about the Achilles heel of that. In the movie, and this is one thing that Zadie Smith points out in her review, is Kate Blanchett and her wife have a daughter. And when the daughter is upset in the middle of the night, she likes people to come in and hold her feet. So you have Kate Blanchett going into the bedroom and holding this little girl's feet to calm her down. And, kind of mentioning the link to Achilles heel, kind of holding that Achilles heel, very, very gently. And, but her being completely oblivious to her own Achilles heel, which is her enormous hubris, the way she manipulates people, all of the ways that she benignly, like on the face of it, she's not a tyrant, but she is someone who just plays people. She's playing everyone. And yeah, and so that sort of abuse of power and the way that she does it, I just really found it super intriguing.
That's wonderful. I'm not going to say anything else about, because I've watched it I think when it came out. So my memory of the film is not very fresh. So I'll just leave it to your
Yeah.
impression of it. You've almost convinced me. How about you, Concha? How was your week in culture?
It was great. I finished a book in, I think, 3 days, which is a world record for me. I'm dyslexic, so it takes me a really long time. I love to read, but I'm just a little bit slow. And it was The Last Sane Woman by Hannah Riegel. It's about an artist who is kind of feeling a little bit lost in, she works with clay, she's a potter, and feeling a bit disconnected from her practice and her life and work. And so she ends up in this feminist archive and discovers these letters, which are an exchange between two friends, but you only have one side of that exchange.
The artist side and not the friend side.
That's right, yes. It turns out that this artist, who at the time of writing is the same age of this of the main character who's in the present, and is also a potter and an artist and kind of going through very similar things, but from completely different time periods. And then you also have the woman on the other side that you don't get to have the letters, but she also appears. Hannah Riegel is so amazing at jumping between these three women throughout the book. The relationships of these women, whether romantic or friendships, they're so well incorporated, but never take the forefront, especially when it's the relationships. I really enjoy that they appear and you think you're going to find out more about their love interests, and but they just kind of disappear, and it's not the focal point of their. It's really about their work and their struggles through life as artists and as women.
Wow, that sounds incredible. And so how old are these women? You said they're all relatively the same age, but in different eras.
I think 25, but I'm wondering, am I
projecting?
Yeah.
projecting?
Because, dear listeners, Concha is 25 years old and also makes things.
Yeah, how funny would it
works
be
with
if they're not
clay,
25?
more or less.
Yeah. I do work with clay, yeah.
You did. So Concha came to my room. I was in bed and she was like, "You have to read this. I don't want to be alone in this. You have to read this book." And I was like, okay. I was just waking up or going to bed. I can't remember. And I read the first pages. And when she goes into the archive, she asks for material about a woman who's struggling to make things. I think that's the question.
Oh, just incredible! Oh, it's just amazing. The best start of a book, you know.
How about you, Joana?
Oh, well, so I traveled to Lisbon. I dove into my research for my book, The Female Drawing Machines, and visited a brilliant artist called Irene Buarc. Irene Buarc, I guess, who emigrated from Brazil to Lisbon in 1973. She is now going through her 8th decade on the planet. And she arrives in Portugal in that year, and she finds it sad and lonely. There's only elderly people and children because all the young men are at war in Africa, in the ex-colonies. And then 1974 arrives and the revolution takes place. And she never left the country. She stayed there her whole life. And it was just so profoundly moving and nuanced to talk to someone who has gone through the 60s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s as an artist under a dictatorship, and how she came to Portugal because she was interested in concrete poetry. And she knew about, so there's this relation, this transatlantic relation between Portugal and Brazil, through concrete poetry, through experimental poetry. And so when she went to Portugal, it was because she was really interested in what was being done in Lisbon, or, you know, in the country, but particularly in Lisbon. And she knew the poets, Eugênio Meli Castro, maybe Salete Tavares already, you know, these people were doing such groundbreaking work with words on paper and taking it to kind of the visual arts as well. And you think, when I think back to those days, I think about constraint and oppression, torture, prisons, you know, but for her, it was coming from a dictatorship that had become really, really horrible from 68 onward, and coming to Europe and to talk to these peers. Those are the moments in this profession, I think, where you just find these folds in time and in history that are really, really exciting.
Great. So can I ask the first question?
Sure.
Okay. And when you kind of think about your growing up, like, what place does art have in it? And when did you first notice it? Because I mean, you were so enmeshed in it, I imagine, you know, from your parents, that it could almost just be sort of the air you're breathing. And
Totally.
And so when did you kind of start to notice it as a thing?
There was this moment when I realized that the work that my dad was making, because I would see most of his life he's worked at home, not in a studio outside of the home. And even when he does have studios, I think he really likes working at home.
Prefers to work at home.
And so I would see him work, you know, all the time. But I remember as if it was yesterday, the moment that I realized that what he spent hours doing, you know, sweat, blood and tears, that he would sell it and that it would disappear from his life and that he probably wouldn't see a lot of those works again. And I remember realizing that and going up to him and saying, Dad, how do you let go of what you just spent ages making? And I guess I was a kid as well. So when I was, making my things, or I have my toys, or I have the drawing I just made and I'm so proud of it, I'm keeping those things. A lot of what I'm making as a kid, I'm keeping it and realizing that what he's playing with and making, he has to give it away. And I just remember thinking, how do you do that? How do you say goodbye? And he was so amazing. And he said, it gets to a point where I'm working on something and I give it my all and I love it so much and I get to spend so much time with it. But it gets to the magical part is that it gets to a point where it's not mine anymore. I get to share that, what I've experienced, I get to share that with someone else. And so it's letting go, but it's also letting it carry on in a different way. I really enjoyed listening to his answer. Part of me, the kid part of me, was still like, oh, but still go.
The shock for me is sometimes speaking with artists who have a hard time letting go of their work. I'm always like, really?
Yeah.
Because I'm so used to seeing someone who's like, sure, this is gonna go somewhere, and I'm letting go of it because this is my way of communicating with people. That really is his language, more than any other language. Even skateboarding or surfing that he practiced for so many hours, and that's not his way of that's his way of communicating with himself, and art is his way of communicating with other people. So I'm not surprised that that's what he answered.
At the same time, we do get to spend so much time with the work that he makes. I would see it every single day. I would see it evolving. Certain times he's working on certain themes, and so you're seeing him build these collections. And so even though it doesn't end up on the walls, we do get to spend so much time with it in the making, but also they'll be, they might not be on the wall, but they'll be on the table. I get nostalgic sometimes because I then see images, or he's bringing something back that he was doing a long time ago, and I see those works and I think, wow, I remember the time of my life when you were working with this and we were spending months and years with this around the house, and now it's in someone else's house, or you're bringing it back and it's nice to see that again. And so even though we don't put things on the walls, we do get to spend such a wonderful amount of time with the work in a different way than it being on the wall, which is nice.
And can I just say, I love this answer so much. Of all of the ways you could answer that, like how did art arrive in your mind and heart and soul that you first noticed? You could have gone, oh, we went to a museum, or, we had a book, or mom curated something. And I mean, but just the fact that, your entry point is this outpouring of intention and creation that your dad had just to spirit it away to its life wherever it's going, kind of that, detachment, as you say, or just kind of that passing along of, Joanna, what you're saying, what he has to say, and really that emphasis of passing it on. Because it would have been a different thing, I think, if he had felt the way a lot of other artists feel, which is like, this is mine now, or that instinct that we all have, like you had when you were a kid, of this is mine. I may have this wrong, but what I'm hearing is like art is almost a thing that it isn't something you keep. At least you're introductory to it, which is it's incredible. So you mentioned drawing, which is obviously your dad, that's his main medium. What do you remember? I mean, obviously you're a kid, you're coloring, you're making stuff. I mean, all kids are artists all the time doing things. Do you remember a time, or was there a time when you were like, okay, I'm going to try to make art?
I never thought of it like that, because to me, art is so present everywhere. I never felt like I had to name something, to call something art. It just is. What I was drawing was art, just as, me seeing a flock of birds in the sky was art. I remember in secondary school, our art teacher, he would often correct what people were drawing and kind of take over people's work and go, no, don't do it like this. And I think he was just, bless him, a bit of a frustrated artist who clearly just wanted to do his own thing. And
like many art teachers.
Is when he said to one of my friends, "Oh yeah, you're not very good at drawing," or and I just was so furious, and I said, or I think he was saying, "Oh, it's not good, or it's not art, or it's something." I can't remember what he said verbatim, but it was along those lines, and I had to, and I was very shy, but I had to say to him, "You can't say that. Everyone can draw. There's of course different skill sets and different things you can learn, but you can't say someone can't draw. That is unacceptable." And actually, another thing that got me in trouble with an art teacher, to be honest with you, I had my, this was in London, and I was learning in my art class about Henry Moore. And I was really enjoying learning about him. And then I came home and I was like, "Oh, we're learning about Henry Moore today. I'm sure you know him. He was the first to introduce that." I can't even remember now actually how bad.
The round shape.
Sense, but there's a term that I can't remember now. But
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And you turned to me furious and you said, "That is incorrect. It was Barbara Hepworth. It was not Henry Moore. Your teacher is wrong. It's not teaching you properly. He was absolutely not the first." And the next day, of course, I went to school to my art teacher and I said, "Actually, it wasn't Henry Moore who was the first. I've been informed by a trusted source that." So we did speak a lot about. The main thing that was present was the making, for sure. And going back to your question, Emily, I think that I'm wondering now the fact that Dad never really kind of put up his work. I don't remember having those feelings of making something and thinking, "Oh, I'm making art and then I'm going to put it up." I never put anything up really or saw art in that way. It really was about making and enjoying the making so much, and the process of the making, but also seeing what I'm doing. But I never felt like it then needed to be called art or put up as such and displayed.
When you say put up, like displayed. Yeah.
It just was more about experiencing it than naming it.
Brilliant. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we will talk to Conch a bit more about how her art evolved and where she took it and where she is now, which is a really fascinating, interesting place. And I also have so many questions about, and you may not be able to answer all of them, Conch, but just kind of how younger people are experiencing the art world, as it were. So lots more to come.
Yeah, let's take a quick break. Okay. See you in a bit.
All right.
See you.
Welcome back again. We all have our hot drinks and we're ready to dig into the second half of the episode.
I don't.
Oh, you poor thing.
I have a very, very lukewarm coffee.
I might be the only
I'll
one.
survive.
I might be the only one with a hot drink, actually.
You're the only one who's got it together today.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were talking about this book you're reading about a young woman living the artist's life. You are doing that in your own life now, which, I mean, that's such an incredible glimpse into what that means for someone making their way in the art world in London, which is not so easy. So you formally studied as a dancer. What took you in that direction?
I was always intrigued by dance from a young age. The art that I wanted to make was more related to movements. Even when in the artists and shows and things that I was interested in when we would go to exhibitions, or when I would learn about an artist, I was realizing that I was really interested in work that involved movement and performance arts. I remember the first time that I think it was Dad. He was showing me the work of Richard Long. That piece that he did when he walked back and forth on
a line made by walking, which is
oh
a
my
photograph
goodness.
of a field of really high grass, and there's a line there.
It's not even high. It's not even high.
It's not
high. I think
I'm aphantasic. I don't visualize. I'm kind of making it up as I go.
That image lives rent free in my mind 24/7.
It's just a path. It's just how you make paths in nature. But he kind of went back and forth and made that path rather than taking a path that probably was somewhere else in the field.
Yeah.
And it's just a black and white photograph called A Line Made by Walking. And that's, for Dad and me, is a very important work.
In those moments, seeing the involvement of the body in making art and in making lines and in drawing, but I also think it's quite funny because I remember when I was a teenager or at university, I can't remember, but Dad was saying, but you really brought kind of dance and movement into the family. That was your path, and you brought it to us, and that's we might have brought things to you, but you also brought things into the home and into my work. And I was thinking, actually, that's not true. The performance was 24/7 at home, and I was so lucky to see the process of drawing and how the body is so heavily involved in the making. And I used to I love watching him work. It was like a free performance, and so I think that sure, I brought some more of the kind of dance and contemporary dance aspect of things, but movement was always there. I didn't bring that. He always had that. His work is very physical. So
tell us a little bit about the work you're doing now, and maybe also just like how movement in the body plays a role in that work.
I really enjoy even the practical process of having to carry and lift and forage big chunks of clay, and I love how much it teaches me how strong I am, even in the practical sense of having to carry things around, and I enjoy feeling the strength that it requires, and because for a long time, especially as a woman, you'd think you are not very strong and you can't carry a lot. And the fact that I make myself carry a lot of things, I really enjoy that feeling of a lot of the time I get an idea, I have to do it, and there might not be anyone around to help me achieve this image that I have in my head of this thing that I want to make. But I have to make it. And so the body has to comply, and I have to do the thing. And I really enjoy that, how movement comes into that, in that sense, in the practical sense. And then I make a lot of things, where the body has to go inside. So some kind of sculptural work where the body has to go inside of the piece. And when I'm making it, I do work a lot around my body, fitting the materials around as I'm working. And it also feels like working as a choreographer, because but just the dancers that I'm working with don't know that they're working with me, and because they're the audience. But I make something that is choreographed, so then I know that this helmets that I hung, for example, I know that a lot of people are going, depending on height, but they're going to crouch a little bit, and then they're going to get inside the helmets, and it's almost like choreographing movements. Did this piece in an art residency, and it's a sculpture that I made out of cob in a field, which is this sort of cocoon that to get inside of it, you have to be in a fetus position. And I did a performance where I was inside the sculpture, and I had a sound playing. And but when the performance finishes, I do invite people to go inside of it if they want to. And because I think I enjoy the choreography aspect of it, that they're going to be moving and that the piece can carry on. I enjoy being inside it so much that I want people to experience what it's like to be. It's also wanting to share something that I enjoy experiencing with other people.
I'm really curious to know if you have, what's your earliest memory of an exhibition, or maybe not the earliest, but like the strongest experience that you had visiting exhibitions when you were a child or a teenager? What's your memory of that?
A lot of memories I have are playing with my brother in exhibitions. We had to go inside this room that got turned into a sort of a maze. It was a room that was completely blacked out. You know, it was dark. You couldn't see a thing. There was some little lights, but because as soon as you would walk, it would trigger certain things that would make things appear. I think there might have been
Where was that? I have a faint memory of that.
a ghost. So I remember a lot of the kind of the games that we would create in those spaces.
The piece of art that you remember most is something you entered into. and you are now making art.
Oh, wow. I did not think, wow, that's how funny. I did not think about that. Oh, yeah. And also, a lot of the places that oh my gosh, this is so funny. A lot of the things that I make, when you enter them, it's dark.
Wow.
Exactly. I find that really interesting that your first memories in exhibitions are of playing in exhibition spaces, because we talk a lot about this in the podcast, which is you can have so many relationships to art, but also to exhibition spaces and to museums. I was always very relaxed about it because I thought they're going to encounter something at some point. You know, I don't have to kind of drive them to.
So, I mean, in terms of your work and how you think of your work, how do you think about that in relation to exhibitions?
I'm not thinking so much about where the work will end up. Yes. But I guess more how I want people to experience the work. And that's what takes me to then, oh, okay. So I guess if I want people to experience it like this, I have to show it like this. I'm very aware, extremely aware of how hard it is to make it in those spaces, exhibition spaces. I feel like sometimes people might think that because of my upbringing that I can see things as much more achievable. And I do in a sense, but not in the sense of, oh yeah, it's easy to make and then for it to be shown. It's really hard. It takes a lot of work in the making process, but an awful lot of work in the networking and the being in the right place at the right time. And a lot of people also think that because of my upbringing, I'm very aware of the ins and outs of finances look like as a freelance artist. And I have friends and artist friends that ask me, so I really struggle to kind of price my work. How does your dad do it? And then I realized I have no idea what he prices his work as. We don't, in our house, we do not talk about money. We do not talk about business.
Yeah, we talk about not having money.
We talk about not having money. And I was thinking, I have no idea how to be a freelancer in the business side of it. And I mean, and it's great that I can ask when I have those questions. I do have, and that's a huge privilege to be able to just, give you guys a call.
I love to have my flaws as a parent exposed out there. That's amazing.
But I mean,
the financial side of things, never a word about it. How to survive in the world, no idea. How to make art, sure.
But I also think that we do need to talk more about not just at home, but in general, about the joy of making
getting paid
income from doing what you love, but also just making an income. And I think talking about money has become so kind of dirty and taboo, and my friends are saying a lot, oh, do you know what, like, I wish I didn't have to work actually, and I hate working, and a lot of memes going on, or maybe it's just me actually, I can't speak for my whole entire generation, but a lot of kind of like, I just want to be running in the fields, F working, can I swear? I don't know. Fuck working. Or even just kind of even friends saying, actually, I'm totally fine with my partner doing the work and me being the artist, taking care of the house and then doing my artwork. And I think, I don't know, I feel like we're entering a dangerous territory here, where I know that what people are saying is that they just want to be able to make their art and not have to think about the part-time job or having to make money from it. But we fought so hard to be able to work, especially as women, and make our money. And I'm not really enjoying this kind of this way that we're kind of going backwards a little bit. And I think we need to understand how dangerous it is to say, I wish I didn't have to work, because also I know that that's not really what they mean, but I wish we spoke more about the joy of working. And we're also very much a generation that is so focused on well-being. And I grew up with the morning routine videos and the evening routine videos and doing all these things for your health and your nutrition and working out and doing this. And it's just like, actually, the moments that I feel the most at bliss and the most alive, and the most at one with not just myself, but with the world, with being here and with being alive, is when I'm working and when I'm doing things that take me outside of myself. Does that mean that it I was working on something for 5 hours and maybe I skipped lunch or I skipped my morning workout, and that who cares that this is it. This is what I would rather be talking about, actually, is working and redefining, I guess, what we mean by what work is. Because I know that when people are saying, I wish I didn't have to work, I know that they're talking about the kind of rat race of the things we need to do to upkeep. And that's something, of course, we need to question. And it's really hard, especially as an artist, to sustain your work and to make money from your work. It's hard, and we can't romanticize that. But I also think that we need to talk about the joy of working and the privilege that it is to be able to call what we do work, because it is work. It is such important work, and it's things that allow us to live in this world that finally takes the focus outside of ourselves, and this perfect way that we're being pressured to live and carry these perfect, healthy lives. But actually, health sometimes actually looks like sweating, making this sculpture that you decided you need to make for some reason, and spending 5 hours on it, and maybe you haven't showered that day, but actually that's health.
Yeah. That is so beautiful. That is really, really I mean, thank you so much for saying all of that. And it's just sparked so many things in my own mind. And it feels like what you're talking about is, sort of redefining work almost as our contribution outside of ourselves. So what are we doing to contribute? And viewing work in that way, just feels so much more empowering, especially with the work that you do, I imagine. But also you, Joanna, and, even for myself. And
Oh, yeah.
again,
Everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally feel the sort of anti-capitalism sentiment of this moment and what some of, your contemporaries, perhaps in particular, are really feeling. Like, I get that wholeheartedly. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot of baby that gets thrown out with that bathwater. If it's all encompassed in, I don't want to work. I just want to enjoy myself and live a carefree life. You're missing a lot if that's the road.
It's funny because that makes me think of our Tibetan Buddhist friend who we met in Paris in the building that we lived in, and he lived somewhere in the 5th floor or 7th. And I remember that they introduced us so it was a family, to Tibetan Buddhism, and we were already quite drawn to Buddhism, and we had a lot of chats with them about it. And I remember thinking, oh, we have to know more about the rituals and know more about the meditative states and what we need to do. And he turned to me and he said, but that one of the things that you can do as a Buddhist is to be doing your work as mindfully as you can and with as much presence as you can. That's a form of prayer. And I remember thinking, okay, that's not what I'm asking you. I want to know what the rituals are,
I want some rites. I want some rituals that just take me to transcendence, please. Thank you.
And then I went home and I thought, oh God, I'm so stupid.
And even the spiritual side of it, I'm seeing so much of and we need to go back to our divine feminine and our idleness and the kind of just laying around and just being feminine, and which again, I think also can be such a wonderful thing. But I feel the most feminine when I'm carrying the heaviest things and sweating and being busy in my working, my making and using my hands. And, we just don't talk about that enough.
Taking away anxiety around money, around where you might go, just in the work itself, in your work, what excites you for what's next. Yeah.
When you asked the question, I instantly went to my hands and the materials that I work with. And it is really what excites me the most about what I do is kind of sensory aspect of really being in touch with the materials. Going back to the meditation story that she shared, it really is something that allows me to be so in the present moment. And that excites me, that it's something that forces me to go out there into the world and to get in the forest and to pick up my things for to make these ideas that I have in my mind come true. And it's almost like a cheat code that I created that forces me to go out there and take my body outside into the elements and really breathe in the air, and that excites me so much.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I just have this image of your hands and the material and just exploring wherever that takes you. And that's lovely. So where can people find out more about your work?
Yes, so I do have an Instagram account where I try my best to share as much as I can.
Yeah, and I'll just say that on the Instagram account, for anyone like me who loves being outside and has done a lot outside, I get massive FOMO. Like when I see it, it's just these incredible perspectives on nature, and your Instagram is such a joy. Yeah, what is your Instagram account called?
It's at saturn.conch, I think. No, that's correct.
It'll be on the show's notes. It's fine. I'll put it as I always do.
And I also have a website that I'm also trying to be better with, which is, I think, www.constanzasaturnino.com.
We'll also put that in the show notes, hey? And we're going to include Field Trail as well. Tell us about Field Trail.
I am also a hand-poke tattoo artist, which I should have mentioned actually, talking about movement, because I think that's another way that I've merging drawing and movement together. And of course, tattooing is drawing on the body as a canvas, and it's a drawing that moves with you for life. Yes, you can find my tattoo work at field.trail
on Instagram. Yeah, also a brilliant feed. You have a very, very distinctive marks.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot.
Brilliant.
Thanks so much. This was
much.
Weird.
No, thank you. No, it's been really, really amazing, and I love what you guys are doing, and to be a part of it, it's really, really special. And so thank you so much for having me in this wonderful space that you've created together. We can talk about art, and we need more spaces like this. So thank you for doing this and for having me here with you guys today.
Well, thank you, my love. Thanks so much. It's been a real privilege to actually almost feel like I'm sitting back and watching, two friends talking, which is really nice. So thank you both.
Nice.
And everyone out there, have a great wrap up of 2024. Let's move into 2025 with more episodes and lots of art.
So many incredible exhibitions coming up in 2025 too. So that should be very exciting to address on the podcast.
Yes. And I also invite people to enter the exhibition of life and seeing art everywhere. I think it would take less pressure off of exhibition spaces and gallery spaces if we could see that art doesn't just live there, it lives everywhere we go.
100%.
That's
brilliant.
It.
Yeah.
It's time to go. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.